the bank.
Hey Brett, how's it going this week?
Good, hey, Ange.
Well, it's Brett and Ange, so that means it's another episode of Money in the Bank. So this week we're going to talk a little bit about why you should save money. We've talked a lot about the reasons or how to save money, but in conversation that we've had recently, we've been talking to people about this and they're like, but why would I save my money when I can just spend it now? And what do I need to save all this money for anyways? Because you can't spend money when you're dead, right?
Yep, can't take it with you, right? That's what they say.
Yeah, and that's totally a fair thing, but at the same time, there's a lot of freedom that you can buy before you die, I'd say.
Right, so it's a good balance, right? You aren't going to save it forever, but what are you going to spend it in the midterm to enjoy your life? So what is the right line to walk there? And I don't think it's one or the extreme or the other, right?
Yeah, and I think, another thing is there's a lot of things that how much joy do they really bring you versus how much joy would retiring 3 years earlier bring you?
Right, and that's the trade-off, right? Is if I want to retire, 5 years in advance or 10 years in advance even, but I'm not gonna, go dune buggying every weekend because I'm not gonna buy, big equipment or like a boat or something like that, that's going to cost me a lot of money over a couple of years. How much is that worth to me? Or even pay somebody to mow my grass, right? Right,
yeah. Well, and, I know I've talked to you a lot about this, Brett, but one blog that really kind of got me interested in, financial independence was Mr. Money Mustache. And he took it to another super extreme where him and his wife cut their total expenses down to $25,000 a year while they were both making, very good salaries. And then he retired at the age of 31. And I think a lot of people, if you presented them with an opportunity to retire that early, but give up, boating every weekend or whatever it might be, they might think twice about buying that boat.
Right. And yeah, that's the best extreme example. You don't hear about a lot of people retiring before 30, but there's a couple stories popping up now about that, right? And so that's kind of being the goal to shoot for. But what is his post-retirement life look like? If he doesn't get to go boating because he doesn't have that boat and he's retired, is he scrimping and saving now? Is he holding all of his pennies because he doesn't have the revenue that he did from working a normal job?
Well, and he cut his expenses before he retired to $25,000 a year, and he's maintained it there. And he's done that in a variety of things, but he has found enjoyment in things that produce income as well. So, he's just one example, but I know he still bikes almost everywhere and he enjoys building things. So fun for him, instead of going out boating, is, building a shed in his backyard or, building a new house or whatever it might be. And then, he's actually realized that he ended up being more profitable in these retirement years than he ever thought he was going to be. So he's been able to spend a little bit more as time goes on. But a big thing for him has been keeping expenses low and finding happiness in things that don't cost money. And I think, it's just a really cool story because that's something that I've really tried to shift to. And I even think if you go back to when you first met me, I really cared about buying clothes and going shopping and getting, my nails done once in a while and stuff like that. And as time's gone on, I've realized yeah, it's nice, probably about once a year, I'd say I order some clothes online and I get some new work outfits and stuff. And that's nice to do, but I'm spending maybe $200 a year on clothes instead of $100 a month. And I'm not less happy because of it, and so I think for me, it's just been this really good lesson of spending money does not make me happy. Driving to work instead of biking to work. I actually prefer biking to work, and I save a ton of money.
Yeah, and I mean, you it's not like you've really let yourself go or anything either, right? Because you've built up a base of the clothes that you need to have. You get a quick refresh, once or twice a year whenever you find something that's a good deal, because you've kind of set yourself up to be able to have that buying power and not be at the mercy of if something breaks down or if you get a hole in your shirt, you have to go out tomorrow and buy whatever you can find, right? You just pick and choose whatever you think is the best thing for you now.
Right. And I buy stuff, as I see it. And There's that saying that everything costs more when you have no money. And that's true in clothes because, if you need a pair of work pants and you didn't buy one when it was on sale because you saw a good deal and had the money to buy it, and then you have to wait, you might not catch that sale, right? But I think the best example of that is like tires. So I know for me, it was about a year ago, I blew a tire on a pothole. But my tires were like 95% bare anyways, I had never replaced it from when I bought my car. And so I just bought all 4 at once, and I actually got one free. And I was like, great, now I don't have to worry about tires for like 10 years or whatever. But if you don't have that emergency fund and you don't have that savings, if that would have happened to me, I would have only been able to buy one tire. And then you buy one at a time, and then it costs you more. We've talked about it a million times, auto insurance. If you can pay 1 year in full, you save a ton of money versus paying monthly.
Right. Usually around at least 10% of the overall bill over the year is automatically saved on that one day.
Yeah. So, I think just to kind of try to get at the heart of our topic this week, why save money? Well, one great example of why you should save money is because when you have emergencies like this, you don't have the stress that goes along with it. And that's been a huge thing that has just helped me become a better and healthier and happier person is when, one other thing that happened recently is our furnace is on its way out the door. But we haven't had to fight about it. We haven't had to, get the cheapest furnace we can and get it in here, as soon as we can. We can wait and take our time and buy the right thing because we know we have this emergency fund set aside for it.
Yep. Yeah, so we're in a position of power rather than in a position of, weakness or at the mercy of the situation, right? Because we've kind of just safeguarded against it a little bit.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of examples. I'll just go through a couple more because I really want to hammer home, like, having a savings frees you up a little bit. Another good example is a roof. I mean, roofs run $10,000 to $15,000 on average, I think it is. And, if you have that money in an emergency fund, as it happens, then you would just buy the roof when you need it. But if you don't have that money, you have to take out a home improvement loan or something, and you have to pay interest on that. So you're paying more money over time for the same thing that we can just pay for at once.
Right. And if you're willing to pay, and not pay like in installments in the first place for a lot of things, right? For a fridge or a microwave, or not a microwave, but washer and dryer, big screen TV, anything like that, right? You're just saving all that money that you would have paid for the layaway fee or the leasing fee on those items and devices. Phones too, right? We've talked about phones before. Buying phones outright is cheaper than buying phones with a carrier plan.
Well, and furniture is a big one. I know when we bought our couch, like, we were able to go in and negotiate the price down and we had all cash, but if you don't have the money, then, like, they're not going to give you a deal. Like, when we bought our couch, we actually got the price dropped 30%. And, we ended up getting, like, a custom-built couch. It was definitely, like, a more expensive piece, but then we have, like, inexpensive furniture that we pair with it. But I know, like, we went in and we got a really good deal on it. But if we were like, oh, we need to put this on credit, they would have never come down like that.
Right. So, I mean, just look at the model of the things we just described, right? So basically anything that you put in your house that is an expensive item is something that you can buy at some type of leasing fee or layaway fee or installment pricing, whatever they want to call it, right? They will let you take that device home with you or couch or whatever that day in order for them to pay more money, right? Because you can do that anywhere, it's so profitable for them, right? That right. Should just tell you how profitable it is for them and how much of a bad idea it is necessarily for you to do that, because they're willing to give you that money for you to have the flexibility to not pay all up front. But if you come to the door with being able to pay up all up front, you save all that money that they're taking advantage of you with, right?
Right. And it's not like they're doing that to be good people. They're not like, oh, take this home with you. Don't worry about it. pay us when you can. No, they're doing it because they're making a lot more money that way.
Yeah, and the bank too. I mean, the bank the bank doesn't just take all your money and just hold on to it because they're good people. They take it because they use it, and it makes them a lot more money for you to put your money in their bank, right?
Right, exactly. So, I think that's one good area to cover. And I think, a lot of people can catch on to the idea of having an emergency fund. But kind of moving one step further, like, why put all this money in a 401k, right? So a lot of people are like, well, I want to enjoy life while I'm young, and then when I'm older, I'll live off of Social Security or whatever, and I'll be fine. Well, Social Security, typically will not give you the exact lifestyle you would want for yourself. I understand at a certain age, you don't care about traveling anymore, and maybe you want to travel while you're young, but at the same time, like, you want to have enough money to still enjoy life once you finally don't have to work. So putting that money away for later is just like giving your future self an advantage.
Right. It depends on, when do you want to take advantage of that? So we talked about striking the balance, right, of, when should I retire? Because great, if I retire now and I've set myself up in some way that I, have a reasonable amount of money that I can still spend. What if I want to continue traveling, right? If I retire when I'm 30, can I never travel ever again? Can I never go to any other countries or even around the United States and travel because my expenses are so tight and I can't increase them to do that traveling? Or can I not ever buy that boat for the next, between when I'm 30 and when I'm 70, right? So what if I retire when I'm 40? Because I have more money that has been saved up that I can play around with more, and I can travel, and I can, get that boat if I want to at that time. Because I think what a lot of people are afraid of is they don't want to retire when they're 50 or 60, but then not be able to do those things and not feel like traveling around the world anymore when they're in their 60s.
Right. Well, and when we were in Prague, we met people who were retired, and they were like, we saved all this money and now we're retired. And they were actually asking me for health tips on, how to stay healthy and active. And if they're still listening, I didn't forget about you biker girls from North Carolina. So this is kind of for you too. But, they were like, well, how do we take care of ourselves to enjoy our later years? And I think so many people are so scared about retiring and immediately having to go to an assisted living facility. But realistically, if you look at it in America, if you retire at 65, you have 15-ish, 5 years on either side, really good years of being active and able to travel and do things. And, the group we met up with in Prague, like, they were older, they had retired, but they were biking from Prague to Vienna, right? On bicycles, not like motorcycles. And I think, that's the huge component. So people ask me, why should I save all this money? I can't travel like this when I'm older. And it was great to meet these people because, yes, you can. The secret is to continue taking care of yourself. That means eating healthy. That means exercising. That means biking instead of driving. That means walking instead of driving. So if you're ever able to walk to the grocery store or bike to work or run to work or whatever it might be, choose these options. Stay active. And I don't mean you need to stay active in the sense that you need to be out running marathons. That is actually also hard on your body. And you should only do that, I've run half marathons, but you need to make sure you're really taking care of yourself and eating and training appropriately. But for basic active levels, just do the little things, park. If you're not ready to walk to the grocery store, park in the last spot and walk in. And, go around the block a couple times a day. Like, it's not big things. It's just these little things that you start taking care of yourself, and then you're able to enjoy life later still. So make sure you give yourself money because you're going to have the time to do it. I always say, like, when I was younger, when I was like 16, I didn't have a job for 6 months when I turned 16. And I had so much free time that it was so easy to spend money, right? Because I had nothing to do. So it was easy to spend money. Then I filled my time with working, and all of a sudden I would get out from school and I would go to work, and I had more money than I knew what to do with because I didn't have the same time to spend it. So that's something else to keep in mind with retirement. A lot of times your expenses will actually go up a little bit, Some will go down, if you're not commuting to work every day, but your expenses will go up because you have more time to do things.
Yeah, so you're saying also when you are able to go out and, do things in your retirement, you should continue to be a lifelong learner. I think we've talked about that before, right? The people that are more successful in their later years or even in their mid years are people that are continuing to learn new skills and do new things and, continuing to be active and, aren't just, binging Netflix, I suppose.
Oh, yeah, right? That will just kill you.
No offense. They got good stuff on there, but you can't get absorbed into that ecosystem, right? You need to be able to continue enjoying your life in other ways as well.
Well, because I think it's kind of like, it's a trap in the same way McDonald's is a trap, right? Like, we all think that McDonald's tastes good because it's salty and sweet and they've gotten the, chemical concoction just right to make your taste buds smile.
That and like instant ramen noodles, right? It's the same thing. Any amount of anything injected salt and fat combination into styrofoam, right? You're going to think it tastes good because your brain is conditioned to think salt and fat combination tastes great.
And I feel like that's the same way with watching TV. Like, it's so easy to get sucked in and be like, this is the highest pleasure in life, right? It's just sitting here, having my popcorn and watching this show. But I think if you can pull yourself away and you start being like, okay, instead of, binge watching Netflix every day, I'm going to start going for a walk and I'm going to get outside again. Then you find like these other things that make you happy, but it's not just like instant gratification. It's more lifelong happiness, right? And taking care of yourself is truly like the path to lifelong happiness. Because if we both took 5 years and I was active every day and you were sitting here watching TV every day, and 5 years later, like, you're going to have aches and pains and it's going to be harder for you to do things and it's going to like really kind of destroy your, what's that thing? Quality of life. It's going to destroy your quality of life, where if you're active, like, your quality of life is so much higher. And that is so true about the road to retirement, right? And that's why if you have a 401k and it's well funded and you've been taking care of yourself for 40 years, then your quality of life is still going to be high enough to enjoy the fruits of your labor.
And we're working on that case study for you guys. Angela's super active and I'm less so active. So we're about 2.5 years in. We'll let you know in a couple of years which one of us is in worse shape.
But you've been improving significantly. So you're skewing the data. Because I know for a fact that you used to eat way more fast food. And you've pretty much curbed that almost completely.
That's true. Yeah, I don't really eat any fast food at all anymore. We cook all the time. We always have really good quality ingredients, and we shop at the farmers market, as we've said many times, right? And all of our ingredient is usually picked same day when we get it.
And even just changing your diet, like the first time we went to Europe, walking around all the time like that, it started getting harder on you a little bit. But this last time, it was like no problem. Like,
yeah, my feet didn't hurt. Yeah, we didn't get tired during the day. We didn't need to really take breaks. I mean, we were much more strategic about, like, stopping to get lunch or, not standing out in the sun all day and stuff like that. But so it was a little bit easier to just keep going all day.
Yeah,
but we did it for an extra week longer this time.
Right.
Basically. Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing, because I think even without you realizing it, as you slowly shifted away from gaming as much or watching quite as much TV, you're more active without even realizing it. Even if it's just you're on your feet cooking in the kitchen, or you're downstairs in your wood shop making an awesome key rack for our house. Like, you are staying active and doing things, and you're just keeping yourself so busy that you don't even notice.
I guess so. I mean, I guess I'm still ticking anyway.
So, well, I think we beat that horse on why you should fund your 401k and why you should take care of yourself to enjoy the most you can in retirement. But I guess I want to talk about going above and beyond. We've mentioned that we save over 50% of what we make, and right now we're reinvesting in real estate, but we're also not afraid to invest in mutual funds, and we keep some in the bank. So I kind of just want to talk about, why are we doing that step? And I think basically we're just trying to bump our retirement date closer. And even if we don't succeed in that, we're giving ourselves options for the future. So if we want to move to Europe as one extreme. We are saving money so that we could make that a reality. Or if we want to open our own business someday, we are saving money so we have capital where we could take a plunge like that. Or if we just decide we're great where we are, and despite everything I said about having a perfectly sized house at 1,700 square feet for raising a family, maybe we decide one day that, you know what, it's not enough and we want to live in a bigger house. Like, then we would have the equity to do so. So I think for us, like, saving for that midterm money is just like saving for freedom, whatever that might be. And we don't know exactly what that is yet, but whatever way it ends up taking shape, we're ready.
Right, and it's depending on if you're making the conscious decision whenever you're doing something, if you're going to sign up for a new service, or if you're going to move to a house with a big lawn and you don't want to mow it, you want somebody else to mow it for you, right? Is that service fee for the rest of your days in that house, is that worth it to you to work a couple extra years in retirement, or to further your working career a little bit longer? So, whether it's a big item like an RV or a boat or an ATV or something outdoorsy, or buying that bigger house that's a little more expensive, or even, doing something more like a service fee, or paying for like a dog walker or anything like that, or childcare or whatever it may be, just look at those numbers and say, okay, if I continue paying for this for 20 years, right? How many more years of work am I going to have to do to pay for that?
So actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I have this really cool app that I've kind of been testing out to see what I think about it. But you can put in, what happens if I start spending an extra blank amount in a certain duration. So, one thing that I think a lot of people get trapped in is buying new cars all the time, which are really expensive. So let's say you want a truck or something, and it's $500 a month. If you start spending $500 more a month, then it's going to take you 2 more years to retire. If you, and for my projections, we're looking at like 8-ish years until retirement. So it's going to take me 25% longer to retire by adding on this vehicle. Now, is 25% of my working career. And so, for me, for what we've kind of plotted out, that's 2 years. But for, the average working career of 40 years, that's an extra 10 years. So is, 50 years instead of 40 years worth it for this expense? And obviously you'd have to run the numbers for your specific situation. But I think looking at it in that way, and I'm really glad you brought that up, like looking at it as how far will this set me back from my goal is really important, because when you're looking at, that number that you need to retire early, I always go with the 4% rule. So if your expenses are $40,000 a year, then you need $1 million saved up to be able to live off of that forever and retire, right? So if all of a sudden you start spending an extra $6,000 a month, well then that's $46,000 you need a year instead. And instead of $1 million, you need, what is that? Like 1.2-ish million, something like that. But anyways, that's a larger lump sum you need. That's more time that you have to be working. So, you just have to really think about it in that way sometimes, because, it's super easy to get caught up as you start making more money and you have these things. It's so easy to be like, okay, I can move into a bigger house now, but will that make you happier, or are you just doing it because you're going through the motions?
Will it make you happier than retiring 5 years earlier? Right?
Right.
I mean, is that extra square footage really, or the finished countertops and all that stuff, is that bonus really worth an extra 5 years of work in a job you may or may not appreciate, right? And normally when I talk to people, they don't really appreciate their jobs. So
right. Well, and I think a lot of people don't think of it that way. A lot of people, I think, they get a raise and they're so used to spending to zero every month. They're just like, okay, I have an extra $100 to spend now. I got a $100 raise a month or whatever it might be. Well, instead of spending it, if you don't need to, why not just save it, And I think people don't realize, it starts adding up so fast, and it will be so helpful for you.
Yeah, and again, everything we talk about on this podcast is a bunch of choices all rolled together in your financial future. And so, for it could be something as practical as, should we get like the top of the line furnace for, in our example, right, for getting something new, or can we save like $4,000 and get something that is absolutely probably the more practical thing for our particular household, for how long we're going to be in this house, for the future and efficiency gains that we're going to see, right? Right. So we're looking at all of those variables for ourselves and saying, like, is it worth $4,000 a year? Is it worth working like another 4 months or something in our retirement strategy to go and pay that off? Or it could be something more frivolous for in our example. We've chosen to say we're going to spend like somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000 a year in traveling because we want to do that, right? And we've ran that analysis and saying that is worth it to us to continue doing that, and we'll extend our retirement timeline a couple years to continue doing that for forever, basically, right? We're planning to continue traveling for quite a long time, even post-retirement. So that's part of our retirement roadmap, now and in the future. So it doesn't have to be just buying some bulk purchase or something that is all up front. It's all the little things that add up too. It's the choices that you make. So just again, like we say all the time, be considerate of all the options that you have and make the right decisions for what makes you happy and what will set you up for success in the future.
Yeah, and I always just emphasize, like, make sure it is actually adding value to your life and you're not just doing it because marketing told you to. And I know marketing is one that we really just need to do a whole podcast on this soon because I think we're both super passionate about it. But there's so much in life that you see the commercial for a new PlayStation 4 or 5 or whatever they're on now. But will it really bring you happiness? And if it will, if you're like, yes, I want that and I'm going to stay home and I'm going to play with my friends, then great. But if you can find happiness without it, or if you can find happiness by, taking your dog for a walk like I do, it's just, you can get a lot out of life without spending money, but that's never what anybody who's trying to sell you anything will tell you.
Right.
And so that's kind of like the hard point there. Everybody, it seems like, is trying to sell you something. But just figure out if it makes you happy or not. And don't just like willy-nilly sign up for things or buy things. I think a classic example, when a lot of people travel, they buy all these souvenirs that they're never going to use. Like t-shirts or coffee mugs or whatever. Does it bring you happiness, or do you just want to take like 10 more pictures?
Or gifts for other people also. And, that's a whole topic we could talk about, perceived value of how much is that thing that you bought versus how much is it worth to the person that you're giving it to. Maybe they don't appreciate it as much as you paid for it, right? And then the store ended up walking away with that difference in value. Right? Yep. We can explain that more in a future cast.
All right. Well, do you have anything to add to this one on why you should save money?
So I think we'll just leave people with it is a delicate balance of, when do you want to retire? What kind of fun do you want to have in your life? What are your expectations, and what do you want to do if you retire, right? That's a question a lot of people probably don't ask themselves because they're not planning on retiring for, way into their futures. But right, what does that look like? Just think about what you're going to do. If you're not going to work 8 hours a day, what are you going to fill that time with? And hopefully it's not watching Netflix. I know they want you to say it's watching Netflix, but hopefully it's learning a couple new skills, doing new things, doing things that are exciting. And, maybe it is working a little bit still. Maybe you choose to go back to work after you retire, or do something more interesting, or something in a different field that people choose to pay you for. But you're working because you choose to, in something that you think is valuable or you're passionate about, not because you have to work there. Right? Yeah. And that just furthers your future also, because then you don't have to work all the time. You can work whenever you want, or whatever you feel like, or whatever the hours would demand it to be, right? In hopefully a part-time scenario, and then you do whatever you want the rest of the time, right? And it's having the money, like you said. What was that quote?
Everything costs more when you don't have money.
Everything costs more when you don't have money, right? set yourself up to be able to take those wins when they're available to you. Buy all 4 tires and get a discount, right? Do all the things that you can take advantage. And again, like we say, when you do those small things, they tend to snowball and it turns into an avalanche. And the more money you have earlier on saves you more and more in the future.
Yeah. All right, so Brett left you with his great advice. I'm going to leave you with a challenge. I am going to challenge you to save $25 a week for the next 4 weeks. And then I want you to tell me if cutting those things out made you happy or not. So, maybe you buy coffee every morning before work. Cut it out for 4 weeks and see if you're really that unhappy making a pot at home. Or maybe that means that you cut out a dinner out for date night and instead you cook something at home. Let me know. Let me know if that makes a big difference or if you're still happy. I think if you try, you'll realize, you could do $5 a day for 5 days. And I think it's super easy to think like, okay, how can I save $5 today, right? Maybe you just don't buy that box of Cocoa Puffs at the store. So I challenge you for 4 weeks, cut out $25 each week. Then you'll have $100. And then once you have that $100, I want to know, did you feel like the sacrifice was that great to earn $100? In other words, how much, for me, if somebody offered me $100 to weed their garden, I would do it with no complaints because that would be a great return, right? So did cutting out these things really, bring you that much sorrow that it wasn't worth $100? And if it did, then add them back in slowly. But if it didn't, then keep doing it. And then, in a year, you'll have $1,200 and then you can invest it. And then your dollars start working harder. And like Brett said, it's an avalanche. And all of a sudden, you just feel like you're getting a taste of freedom. And I think once you get that taste of freedom, that financial freedom, it is so exciting and so addicting that you just want to keep that snowball growing.
Right. And do I want to turn that $12,000 into $20,000 or do I want to spend that money on a TV?
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So with that, we will end the podcast. One kind of exciting announcement, we are hoping to get all of our podcasts converted to YouTube over the next couple weeks. And then we will start recording actual videos. So you will get to see our smiling faces as we talk about financial topics. So hopefully we will get that up, I will say before the end of November, just to give us a nice leisurely timeline.
Maybe I'll put a bag over my head. We're still on the fence about that.
We'll see. But all right, well, thanks, guys. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Money in the Bank. Make sure to subscribe to us on the iTunes or Stitcher app so that you get weekly alerts every time we post a podcast. Or if you want, you can visit my website, moneyinthebankpodcast.com. And if you want to reach out with any questions or further comments, please email me at Angie@moneyinthebankpodcast.com. I look forward to hearing from you.
Money in the bank, in the bank.